Have you ever wondered why, while millions of people are out there living paycheck to paycheck, getting crushed by inflation and skyrocketing rent, certain families not only survive but multiply their wealth exponentially? In economics, we call this phenomenon wealth divergence. Picture this: you're sweating it out on a treadmill, and them? They aren't running. They own the entire gym and probably the supply chain that manufactured the treadmill you're running on. While you're stressing over whether to renew your Netflix subscription or save money for groceries, Palantir's powerhouse CEO, Alexander Karp, is busy, crunching massive data for the CIA to predict the future. Or look at the legendary Michael Jordan, who makes way more money from people lacing up his namesake sneakers than he ever did sinking buckets on the hardwood. Clearly, they know something about the system running this world that we are completely in the dark about. So let me ask you a question. If you had a magic machine right in front of you, would you choose to print money? Or would you print the rules so others automatically bring their money to you? Drop a comment with either print rules or print money down below so I can see where your head's at. Today, we aren't here to just read off some boring rich list. We're putting the 5 most powerful African-American family empires of 2025 on the operating table. We're going to dissect them through 6 meticulous layers of strategy to uncover the exact DNA blueprint that made them immune to the test of time and how they built these impenetrable financial fortresses. To kick off this list of giants, we have to talk about the mastermind behind the algorithms controlling global security, the Alexander Karp family. With a net worth hitting $14.3 billion in 2025, Karp isn't just your average tech billionaire. He holds the master key to the Western world's data vault. Back in the early days, while most Silicon Valley engineers were busy building social media apps for entertainment, Karp saw a much harsher reality. Post 9/11, he realized the world was in total chaos, with fragmented information and intelligence agencies flying blind when it came to connecting the dots. Karp spotted a massive crack in the system: the sheer information asymmetry between what the government needed to protect the country and what current tech could provide. And just like that, Palantir was born. But here is the linchpin of this family's power: the choke point mechanism. Palantir doesn't just sell software, they built an operating system for intelligence agencies. Once the CIA, FBI, or the DoD integrates their top-secret data into Palantir's system to track criminals and fight terrorism, they essentially can't unplug. In economics, we call this institutional privilege at the highest level. They became a literal extension of the government, an irreplaceable monopolistic weapon. This empire's golden era was hands down the 2024 to 2025 stretch. When the global AI boom hit, Palantir's stock saw unimaginable growth, over 1,600% since going public. By this point, Alexander Karp wasn't just a CEO anymore, though he had truly become the world's data gatekeeper. These mind-blowing growth numbers skyrocketed the Karp family to the #1 spot on the list of the wealthiest African-American families on the planet. However, with great heights come steep drops. Karp's empire came close to crumbling at its roots when faced with fatal breaking points. We're talking about the massive public backlash and outrage when Palantir was accused of privacy violations and enabling extreme surveillance. Protests and anti-surveillance tech movements severely tainted their public image. The hard-hitting takeaway here? Data power, no matter how immense, is incredibly fragile when pitted against societal ethics. If you're picturing Alexander Karp as a billionaire in a suit and tie sitting in an air-conditioned corner office, think again. He is a philosophy PhD with a highly eccentric lifestyle. Instead of lavish parties, he's often spotted practicing Tai Chi on the company campus or hiking through the woods, pondering the nature of existence. This eccentricity makes him look more like a hermit than a tech mogul, but perhaps it's that philosopher's mind that helped him see the rules of the game that regular folks miss. So, what's the actionable takeaway here? The Karp family teaches us this: never just sell a standalone product. Learn to sell a solution to an irreversible problem. If you're in business, build a system your clients don't just want to use, but are forced to use because there's simply no better alternative. Don't just own a shop. Own the very process the entire market relies on to operate. That is how you rise up and become bulletproof against the test of time. Leaving the world of Intel algorithms behind, we move to an empire built on the actual bricks and broadband of the digital age, the David Steward family. With a $12.4 billion fortune, Steward isn't just a billionaire, he's living proof of how critical it is to dominate the infrastructure in the game of power. The story starts when Steward spotted a fatal flaw in the tech supply chain of the 90s. While massive corporations were laser-focused on manufacturing hardware, they were dropping the ball on how to actually install and run those complex networks for clients. Starting a small company with borrowed money, Steward bet his entire career on one belief. Sooner or later, the big dogs would need a highly skilled middleman to connect everything. And that belief birthed a choke point named Worldwide Technology, or WWT. Imagine WWT as the toll booth on the digital highway. When tech titans like Cisco, Microsoft, or Apple want to get their products to enterprise-level businesses or the government, they essentially have to go through Steward's integration and distribution pipeline. That's exactly why WWT's annual revenue exploded past $17 billion. They don't need to invent the software or the computers, they just need to own the only road that gets them to the end user. Their shining moment was when WWT officially became the largest Black-owned business in America. This isn't just a title, it completely redefined Black excellence. They aren't dominating in sports or entertainment. They're dominating in B2B, a cutthroat arena of traditional corporations where power historically only belonged to old money. But don't let the billion-dollar price tag fool you into thinking this was a walk in the park. To get here, Steward had to survive some terrifying make-or-break moments in the 90s. There were times when cash flow dried up so badly, he had to helplessly watch his car get repossessed right in front of him. Rock bottom was looming, and the line between a future billionaire and a guy who lost it all was razor thin. The Steward family's lesson in grit and risk management is the most valuable masterclass for anyone trying to build an empire. There's also a fascinating, lesser-known side to David Steward. He is a deeply devout man. Believe it or not, a world-leading tech empire is run strictly on biblical principles. He believes in servant leadership, compassion, and integrity. To Steward, business isn't a life-or-death war to annihilate the competition. It's a vehicle to serve the community and create sustainable value for the next generation. So, what's the real-world lesson the Steward family leaves us? It's this: don't mine for gold, own the road leading to the gold mine. In business, the one holding the infrastructure, controlling the logistics, and running the distribution network is the one with absolute power. If you're launching a startup, ask yourself, what is the infrastructure everyone needs but nobody is stepping up to manage? Claim that, and you claim the entire market. Next up, we enter the realm of staggering numbers and heart-pounding buyouts with the man known as the private equity maestro, Robert F. Smith. By hitting a net worth of $10 billion in 2025, Smith isn't just an investor, he's the guy who redefined how cash flows in the digital era. Right from the jump, Robert F. Smith realized a truth few paid attention to. Enterprise software is the world's new black gold. He wasn't chasing the flashy startups making front-page news. Instead, he leveraged information asymmetry to hunt down and acquire undervalued software companies, throwing them into his forge to restructure them into absolute cash cows. Smith's ultimate weapon is his investment firm, Vista Equity Partners. This isn't just a financial fund, it's a power choke point. Vista owns the software that core industries physically cannot function without. By integrating deeply into his clients' workflows, he dug an incredibly wide economic moat. Once a business runs on Vista's system, ripping it out is just as hard and insanely expensive as trying to rewire an entire skyscraper. The golden moment that pushed Robert F. Smith's name far beyond Wall Street was the 2019 Morehouse College graduation. Jaw-dropping thousands of people, he announced he was wiping out the entire $34 million student debt for that graduating class. That wasn't just charity, That was the exact moment pure financial horsepower morphed into soft power and an immortal social legacy. He proved that when you have enough money, you can alter the trajectory of an entire generation. Yet even giants have Achilles' heels. In 2020, a shocking tax evasion probe blew up, aiming right at Robert F. Smith. This misstep came dangerously close to burning his reputation and his hard-built empire to the ground. It serves as a costly reminder of how fragile power can be. Even if you're the wealthiest black man in America, you still have to face the ruthless rules of the system if you step out of line. Behind the billion-dollar buyouts, Smith has a true artist's soul. He has an intense passion for music and the arts, owning massive collections that any museum would kill for. It's exactly this blend of an engineer's logical brain and an artist's sensitivity that makes Robert F. Smith so uniquely formidable. The actionable lesson from the Smith family? Remember this: real wealth isn't the luxury goods you buy, it's your control over passive cash-flowing assets. In the 21st century, whoever holds the software and the AI holds the flow of money. If you want sustainable wealth, don't just work for money. Learn to own self-sustaining systems that print value even while you sleep. Moving from tight-lipped private equity, we step into an empire whose logo is everywhere. From basketball courts to high-end fashion runways, the Michael Jordan family. With a $3.8 billion fortune, Jordan proved that an athlete's peak isn't hoisting trophies. It's turning their own name into a perpetual financial institution. The genesis of this empire didn't start with a slam dunk, but with a massive pivot in financial thinking. In the 80s, while every other sports star was perfectly happy cashing fat endorsement checks, Jordan and his agent did something unprecedented. They changed the rules of the game. Instead of taking a flat endorsement fee, he demanded a percentage of the revenue on every sneaker sold. That is asymmetry in thinking. Jordan wasn't selling his basketball skills. He was selling the American dream and the hunger to win, all boxed up in a brand. And that created a choke point called Jordan Brand. Look at it this way: Nike can own the factories, the assembly lines, and the global distribution, but they can never own the soul of the Jumpman logo. Jordan created a textbook network effect. The more people rock Jordans, the higher the brand value skyrockets, and those sneakers stop being sports gear. They become a cultural asset. Nike needs Jordan to maintain its dominance, and that exclusive leverage is what banks the Jordan family hundreds of millions in royalties every year without him ever breaking a sweat in the gym. The crowning moment that cemented Jordan as a heavy hitter in the capital markets was the sale of the Charlotte Hornets. Buying the team for $275 million and cashing out at a $3 billion valuation, that is astronomical growth. It's the ultimate proof that Jordan successfully shed his entertainer skin to become a true capitalist, knowing exactly how to use money to make money at the highest level. But even his airness faced breaking points that forced him to taste defeat. Before that massive team sale, Jordan caught a lot of flack for his management skills. Under his ownership, the team suffered through dismal seasons and terrible draft picks. It was a painful lesson in the fragility of glory. God-given talent on the court doesn't automatically translate to executive competence in the boardroom. Even a legend can fall flat if they try to force a solo player mindset onto a complex collective system. Behind the glitz is a dark side of borderline obsessive competitiveness. Jordan refuses to accept defeat, even in the smallest things. Legend has it he'd bet thousands of dollars on a game of rock, paper, scissors or a caterpillar race on an airplane window. This bizarre hyper-competitiveness is the eternal engine that built his empire, but it's a double-edged sword in personal life. The actionable takeaway from the Jordan family is crystal clear. Turn your name and skills into an infrastructure asset. Never settle for just being the highest-paid employee in your field. Learn to own the brand, own the licensing, and own the process. If you don't build a system to make money after you retire, you will forever be a pawn in someone else's game. Learn from Jordan. Be the one who owns the chessboard. Finally, we close out our list of giants with an entity that doesn't just hold wealth, but holds the very pulse of global pop culture, the Carters. the ultimate power couple, Jay-Z and Beyoncé. With a combined net worth hitting $2.6 billion in 2025, they are the loudest proof of the saying, "Don't just play the game, be the game." The roots of this empire trace back to the gritty blocks of Brooklyn, where Jay-Z literally had to sell CDs out of the trunk of his car because no record label would give him the time of day. But in that grind, he spotted a survival rule. In the creative industry, whoever holds the original copyrights, the masters, holds absolute power. Rather than signing slave contracts for pennies, Jay-Z chose the path of owning himself. He understood the information asymmetry. Artists usually only see the flashing lights right in front of them, while he saw the eternal value of equity. The true firepower of the Carters lies in their vertical integration strategy, an unbreakable choke point. They aren't just artists singing for hire. They built their own enclosed ecosystem, from music with Rock Nation and streaming platforms, all the way to top-shelf liquor empires like Armand de Brignac, Ace of Spades, Champagne, and Douce Cognac. They control everything from production to the consumer's glass. What does this mean? It means they don't need anyone's permission to get rich. They manufacture the demand, supply the product, and pocket the maximum profit. Their golden era is defined by moves that shook both the financial and art worlds. We're talking about the Renaissance tour shattering box office records and massive equity deals selling stakes in their liquor brands to luxury conglomerates like LVMH at billion-dollar valuations. At this point, Jay-Z and Beyoncé aren't just entertainers. They are the gold standard of global cultural power. When they show up, it's not just music. It's a statement on African American autonomy and prosperity. However, this massive ship has sailed through some violently turbulent breaking points. There were brutal PR crises regarding their marriage that seemed ready to shatter everything, and fierce early-stage competition from streaming platforms that severely challenged their business model. But the Carters' differentiator is that they don't fold. They weaponize their pain and crises into top-tier art and then use that very art to clean up at the bank. That is how they heal and reboot their system. There is an incredibly fascinating angle to how this family secures its legacy: financial education for the next generation. Blue Ivy, their eldest daughter, isn't just living in the lap of luxury. She already has her own investments and is actively involved in the family's business ventures. The Carters aren't just passing down cash. They are passing down a business DNA blueprint, ensuring this empire will stand strong for generations to come. The ultimate takeaway from this family is summed up perfectly in Jay-Z's immortal lyric: "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman." Learn to turn yourself, your skills, and your name into a closed-loop ecosystem. Don't just hold one spot on the value chain. Figure out how to own the whole damn chain. When you are the ecosystem, no market shift can ever make you obsolete. All right, so we've just dissected the 5 most powerful African American family empires in 2025. But if all you took away from this were billion-dollar figures or luxury brands, you completely missed the soul of this whole story. The sustainable wealth of these 5 families doesn't come from just grinding hard the way we were all taught. It comes from their sheer brilliance in designing self-correcting, self-operating systems. Take a step back and look. Alexander Karp doesn't just work. He leverages the government's data stream. Michael Jordan doesn't need to lace up anymore. He leverages the perpetual value of his brand trademark. The Carters don't just sing. They leverage a closed-loop intellectual property machine. What is the one common denominator here? They all made the vital quantum leap, transitioning from active income, trading sweat for cash, to owning infrastructure assets. To help you really visualize this metamorphosis, let's look at the mind map of these giants. Phase 1 is always accumulation based on elite skills. Jordan had to be the best baller, Jay-Z had to be the top MC, and Robert Smith had to be a razor-sharp quant. This is where they used their talent to generate initial leverage. But they didn't park there to coast. They immediately shifted to Phase 2, converting all those resources into infrastructure assets. They built Jordan Brand, launched Vista Equity, or established the WWT distribution network. This is when they turned their names into machines the world was forced to use. And finally, in Phase 3, they built massive defensive walls using legal structures, trust funds, and political influence. Looking at how the Steward family or the Karp family is grooming the next generation to take the reins, you realize they are setting up for centuries of dominance, not just a single lifetime. A lot of people talk about the ultra-rich rushing to build doomsday bunkers because they're terrified of the future's unpredictability. But guys, once you truly grasp the golden cycles and how these 5 empires locked down the world's choke points, I believe you won't need to be afraid anymore. Because now, you know the real rules of longevity. Never just try to own a lot of money, learn to own the system that prints the money. Before we wrap up today's video, I have a challenge for you. Out of the 5 power families we just dissected, whose strategy terrified you the most with its sheer brilliance and vision? And more importantly, what is your game plan for the next 6 months to start building your own little system? Break your plan down in the comments below. I'm going to personally pick the 3 most realistic and high-potential plans to reply to and give some detailed consulting. Don't just watch this and move on. Start designing your legacy today. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next deep dive into the codes of power.